What's up guys, it's Notorious 343 Industries Shield here, Shredded Nerd. Halo Infinite has the most radical change to Halo's weapon roster ever. And as the Twitter community would say, I'm here for it. I have certainly been critical of 343 Industries in the past, but I think revamping the weapon roster is one of the best ways you can innovate and make Halo feel brand new without discarding the fundamentals with things like abilities tied to the player. Halo Infinite seems to solve an age-old Halo problem. Allow me to demonstrate. Players and vehicles on a distant Halo ring, they evolve to cooperate in their quest to survive.
Cooperation, because life is a team sport.
But over time, one species evolved a better strategy, and an evolutionary arms race began. Now, I've covered this concept before in previous videos, but I felt I'd need to give it its own video to fully explain the idea. Also, to those people saying the gameplay sucks, insult me all you like, but don't insult the nerd army. This footage was sent in by my subscribers. If you think you have better gameplay, prove it by sending it to the email in the description. Basically, in Halo Combat Evolved, the balance of the multiplayer vehicles was not important. You could destroy ghosts and banshees, but not warthogs or tanks for some reason. It was blatantly unbalanced. Vehicles were overpowered and it was inconsistent whether you could or couldn't destroy a vehicle, because most of the vehicles were tuned for single player, not balanced for multiplayer. In Halo 2, you could now destroy every vehicle. There were also counters to the vehicles such as rocket launchers and plasma grenades to keep the vehicles in check. You could hijack vehicles as well if you got close enough. Plasma grenades now gave a quick way to destroy vehicles. Technically, it was supposed to balance the vehicles, but the vehicles actually became overpowered. Outside of rockets, fuel rod, and plasma grenades, there weren't really many effective counters to vehicles. They also added powerful vehicles like the Gauss Warthog. Halo 2 had control-based weapon spawns, meaning power weapons didn't respawn until the ammo was used up on the previous one, or the previous one despawned. If one team wanted to dominate the match, they could get a hold of the rockets and then get in the Warthog and dominate. They were just too powerful. Halo 2 vehicles actually had lower health values than other games. They took fewer shots before dying, but they were stronger relative to the rest of the sandbox. When a vehicle team had control of the rockets, all they had to worry about was plasma grenades. And just having that as a concern, it's pretty easy to avoid. Halo 3 made an attempt to fix this. They upped vehicle health, but the vehicles were weaker. This was because now there were way more counters to vehicles. Every plasma pistol could EMP vehicles, in addition to the power drains spawning everywhere. They also added homing weapons like the missile pod, as well as the return of rockets, fuel rod, and plasma grenades. The biggest change was the addition of the almost hit scan Spartan laser, a powerful beam that instantly obliterated your enemy. Some powerful vehicles like the tank took extra shots, but it was still much easier to take down vehicles. The vehicles in Halo 3 were incredibly powerful. If you had a good Spartan laser user on your team, that meant basically either your team was locked out of vehicle combat entirely, or you could easily dominate the match with vehicles. This meant that basically either your team was locked out of vehicle combat entirely if you were on the receiving end, or if you were on the very generous giving end, acting in the Christmas spirit, doling out punishment, you could easily dominate the match with vehicles. The Spartan laser became the crux of big team battle play. A halfway competent laser user could shut out an enemy team. In Halo Reach, the Spartan laser was nerfed. It was reduced from 5 shots to 4 shots. It also had a smaller radius, making it harder to nail shots. Not to mention it spawned less often on fewer maps. This was Bungie recognizing the issue with the Spartan laser. They also introduced new anti-vehicle options such as the plasma launcher and the grenade launcher that are slightly harder to use than the laser. They also added armor lock, which was the bane of all vehicles in big team battle. Introducing armor lock to fix the vehicle balance is kind of like complaining about your house being a little too cold, so you go on to burn it down completely. The vehicle health in Halo Reach was increased, but it was no longer tied to player health. Vehicles had their own separate health bar, and their own separate health insurance as well. If you got in a burning vehicle, it would die in a few shots, regardless of player health. Vehicles ultimately were nerfed in Reach. They were weaker relative to everything else. Most significantly, the DMR. Every single player had a mini sniper in their backpack and could ping enemies from across the map. Vehicles were weak in Reach because it was so easy for any player to light them up from any hiding spot in the map. It was no surprise that vehicles were only effective on really tight and narrow maps, particularly Forge maps where enemies popped out against the grey background. So the devs were having issues with balancing, trying to make vehicles empowering without being overpowered. Bungie left to go explore the stars and delete half of them, so 343 took the reins. It's hard to imagine the word balance coming up at all during the development of Halo 4. The vehicles were buffed, but none of that shit matters. Players could spawn with plasma pistols and plasma grenades. Bruh. It's not like anybody played it anyway. In Halo 5, vehicles were not front and center. In their marketing, they really honed in on 4v4 arena. There was also the microtransaction mode. Warzone had a massive selection of powerful vehicles. The Halo 5 vehicle health was actually tuned up significantly. Vehicles had shields and massive health pools. Not to mention, Warzone had even more powerful vehicle variants. But with more powerful variants came more powerful vehicle counters. 12 enemy players, all potentially equipped with Hydras, railguns, rocket launchers, fuel rods, Spartan lasers, Gauss turrets, hunter cannons, incineration cannons, and much more. Not to mention all the wreck variants which rendered them even more powerful, like the Echidna or Selene's Lance. Not to say there weren't ridiculous vehicle variants, more that Warzone wasn't even attempting to look like a vague second-hand description of somebody pretending to be an imitation of a balanced game mode. I do have a tendency to write it off. It isn't really a game mode in the same way, say, King of the Hill is. You couldn't go in and create custom Warzone variants. You couldn't forge Warzone maps. Big team battle was an afterthought in Halo 5. The thing about it is, vehicles, despite being stronger, were robbed of their power due to every player having the ability to fly around. There was less of a unique advantage to getting in a vehicle. You were basically just sacrificing mobility for an armor boost. So, Halo Infinite. What is the solution this time around? It's actually true. Halo Infinite features the biggest revamp of the Halo sandbox ever. From what we know, there is no Spartan laser at all. We don't truly know how the Infinite Vehicle sandbox will work, but we do have an idea from the trailers. We have a brand new weapon, the Brute Skewer. It is a one-hit kill, near instant projectile. It does high damage, and from the trailers, 343 is setting it up as the answer to the Spartan laser. It looks as though the Skewer pushes vehicles back, as well as doing significant damage to them. But it's not a one-hit kill. So, it's a powerful counter to vehicles, specifically utilizing physics attacks of knocking them back, but it's not a one-hit kill like the Spartan laser. It can flip vehicles, knock them off course, but it seems that it's going to be a bit harder to basically lock vehicles out of the map entirely. This could solve the problem of making vehicles empowering, but not overpowered. We'll have to wait and see how it fares in big team battle. Now, of course, I've had some responses on this theory in previous videos. Don't worry, I'll definitely get around to covering all your complaints soon enough. Spoilers, control-based spawns still suck. Funnily enough, people can't decide whether I'm a 343 hater or a Halo 5 kid. Also, yes, I recognize the vehicles were weaker in Halo 2, but the weakness was relative to the rest of the sandbox. Like I said, there were fewer counters to vehicles. Shooting vehicles with your primary weapon was useful in Halo 2, but not as powerful as in, say, Halo Reach, where you had the DMR and all that. Warzone was not a good replacement for big team battle in Halo 5. It wasn't what Halo players wanted. It was clearly designed with microtransactions in mind, front and center. You couldn't forge it, you couldn't play it in custom games. So when I talk about big team battle balancing, I'm referring to the mode people actually want to play. I do feel quite safe dismissing Warzone. And no, people who enjoy big team battle are not fake fans or casuals. The majority of people are what's referred to as omnivores who'll play many different modes, including both big team and competitive modes. The Spartan laser is good because if one team is better than the other, they should win. But you see, it's not a matter of one team being better. That's the issue. It's one single player who decides the match. By removing the enemy's ability to even fight back and prove their skill on a level playing field. And let me lay something else to rest right fucking now. Whenever I bring up hitscan, people always jump in to correct me, regardless of what I'm saying. Like when I try to simplify a point I'm making by saying that a certain Halo weapon is hitscan, people jump in to tell me that Halo never had hitscan. When I say that Halo never had hitscan, people jump in to tell me that Halo did have hitscan. Only Halo Combat Evolved and 3 didn't. Or only the original trilogy didn't have hitscan. Now, this is a case of mass confusion, probably spread by some NWO psyop. Too much vaccinated fluoride in the water, and now it seems nobody can agree. Look, Halo has never been hitscan. The first group was right. Everything in Halo is a projectile, even the Spartan laser. It's just that the speed was tuned up incredibly high, such that the projectile reaches its target in one tick. To cap it off, I want to do a TLDR to ensure my point isn't misconstrued. Halo vehicles are strong. They need a counter. Spartan laser is introduced to counter it, but it's too strong. Halo Infinite introduces the skewer, which fills the same role but is less overpowered. Thus, the skewer is the answer to the Spartan laser. But you too may do a full wall of text response to this video in the comments down below. You can also like and subscribe for more Shredded Nerd content in the future.